Okay, great. So we'll just start with the session now. And so just a quick introduction. My name is David Isaac, and I work for QAI Global, and I lead the BPI Business Process Improvement and Innovation vertical. I'm a certified MBB and also a practicing Matriz Level 2 certified professional. So our area of focus today is to really understand what TRIZ is all about, and how it can be used for a service or a business scenario kind of areas per se. Okay, great. So let me take you to the next slide. Um, Initially, if you look at the conventional way of any product development or any service development or any new process rollout, uh, typically we have to experiment with lot many of the ideas before we come up with a success. So if you see, innovation is cumbersome, and you will find that a lot of effort goes in trying to identify the new ideas as they emerge. So the need is, how do we really come to those key success thought processes and new ideas in as fast as possible. And of course, many times we are faced with a lot of challenges in our business processes because of what we will see later on during the session is what we know as contradictions. So there are multiple contradictions that exist, and because of which we find it difficult to find that ideal kind of solutioning. So we have one of the very beautiful quotes by Albert Einstein, where he mentions that the problems that exist in the world today cannot be solved by the level of thinking that created them in the very first place. So we will have to move through to the new level of thinking, and TRIZ innovation per se gives us tools, techniques for us to come up with better ideas, address problems that were at one moment of time thought unsolvable in a sense, and we can actually come up with new business processes, new business models for us to integrate our digital strategies, business transformation strategies, and even to an extent, even predict a certain kind of trend of evolution of certain business processes as we understand, because sometimes we get trapped within our own mental inertia. So what really happens is there is always a solutioning. There is always a solution that exists as an ideal solution. But if you see here, we are not able to view the solution because of a mental inertia. This mental inertia in innovation TRIZ is something got to do with your prior biases, experiences, thoughts, certain experiences that something was successful or something was not successful. For example, somebody may have done lean earlier or Six Sigma earlier for business transformation, and therefore the tendency is every time there is a problem at hand to use the same tool again to come up with the solutioning. But unknowingly we fall into a trap wherein similar solutions come into play, and we find that we are wanting to have new solutions, which of course we are not able to get. And many people tell us, think out of the box. So how do we really think out of the box? We have something like a TRIZ technique. TRIZ technique, we'll shortly see what this TRIZ is all about. But when we are designing processes, when we are overcoming business challenges like you resource crunch, there could be regulatory requirements which are there in our businesses. In all of these conditions, we have to. There is always a contradiction, and there is also the mental inertia. So you have two things to grapple with, in a sense. On one side is the mental inertia, which is our thought processes, which prevent us from thinking and coming up with new, better ideas. And the other is the contradictions and the limiting factors which prevent us from moving towards an ideal solutioning. So TRIZ per se becomes a roadmap for us to go in a very structured manner towards overcoming these inertias and self-realizing and teaching ourselves certain skills for us to see the solutioning. So TRIZ per se, if we look at TRIZ per se, if you look at is if I translate it, it stands for a Russian word, which if I translate in English talks about theory of solving inventive problems. So how to solve problems which are inventive in nature, some problems which we haven't solved as yet and find it very difficult, and sometimes we come to a solutioning which is a win-loss kind of a solution or sub-optimal kind of solutionings, which essentially is not the best solution, but given the scenarios at hand, it is something that we have to do with temporarily. For example, we want to improve productivity of a certain process, and we know that that the digital and automation of certain tools would actually improve the entire piece up. But if we have constraints on investments and capex, then we come to a state where we design processes which could use a certain level of cost implications, and then make do with certain problems and stay with them for a certain number of years before we even start thinking of attacking them. So this technique, TRIZ, is essentially a Russian technique identified by by the father of TRIZ, Genrich Altschuler, and he studied various patents. He was in Russia, so he was in the patents office, and he studied various patents, and to figure out whether this coming up with ideas, and he was really interested in how come people are coming up with beautiful ideas consistently, and there are others who are struggling to think very differently or out of the box. So is this something like a God-given gift? Is it a birth gift kind of which is given, or is it a skill that we can really train ourselves for? So he realized that this is more of a skill, and he studied for identifying certain patterns and identifying what exactly different people are doing. He started to look at various patents that were filed by the people in Russia, and identified certain key patterns, or what we know today as the 40 principles, which is one of the beginnings of TRIZ science, as we may say so. And what he came up with, that people typically use certain base principles and patterns to solve their problems in a very effective manner, and those he documented. And of course he did a lot of other work, also research in terms of very advanced tools to use to solve, not only solve problems, but to build creativity in people, to look at predicting certain technological roadmaps, or what they call as trends and lines of evolution, and certain very high-end and complex tools like ARIZ, 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 which can be used for very complex problem-solving elements per se. But what really happened was, at that time, he it was very radical, and if you see here, he was arrested at a certain moment of time and put into prison also. But he had a lot of followers and students with him and his colleagues who continued his work. And what we know today as the practice of TRIZ, and under MATRIZ, which is a global kind of an organization, wherein a lot of these certifications and other things get offered per se. But they essentially come from what Genrich Altschuler really uh, discovered and proposed. One of his key findings of Altschuler were that for every problem to exist, there is always a contradiction at its base. So there are contradictions, and the time that we start understanding systems as a set of contradictions and learn how to resolve contradictions is when we become better thinkers and we come up with better solutions as such. Any questions still here? Till so, I'm just to ensure that we are all on board. And if there are any questions, please pop your questions onto the chat session window. If there are any questions at this moment. Okay, great. So if you look at emerging practices for innovation, so actually TRIZ innovation started off more with product design and manufacturing and looking at problems in the manufacturing space. But in today's world, a lot of approaches are available and very similar approaches, very similar tools, and there are some tools which are modified also for use in business scenarios. Typically, when we talk about business process reengineering or trying to solve problems in the service industry or the IT services industry. So you can actually come up and solve problems. So one major area is innovative problem solving, which is solving certain problems. The other application is in terms of managing risk, to predict risk in certain processes, offerings that we have, and how to create processes which are very robust. The third area of application is to create IPs and intellectual property. If we are, so there are techniques to overcome and circumvent certain patents also as a science. Then there are approaches to coming up with ideas and then moving towards filing those patents also. And the fourth major area is in terms of directed evolution, that is predicting certain technological evolutions that happen or business process evolutions that will happen, so that when we are designing our processes and when we are designing our business systems for us, and it could be not only in a banking, BFSI, and IT, and an insurance, it could be any business process per se, is we are able to predict a certain direction that that process or that particular technology will evolve in the coming 5 to 6 years or so. Because historically there are tools in innovation trace which showcase and are able to measure maturity of existing systems moving towards an ideality in terms of trends of evolution that have been identified by various TRIZ experts globally. So I'll take you to the next slide here. So essentially, if we look at TRIZ per se was identified basis certain patents that were identified. So here you see that when Alschuler started studying the patents, he saw somewhere around 40,000 odd inventive patents, and he studied the patterns of evolution and the methods that people were using to come up with these ideas, and he identified what we know as the general purpose principles, that are the 40 principles as such. Of course, this tool also has evolved into multiple other like Sufield and contradiction analysis and others also, like root conflict analysis, and some which help us to use some of these principles. But the foundation started off from here. So this kind of work was done by Alschuler. If we look at our problem solving technique that we normally follow, we have a specific problem here, and we want to come to a solution that we which we have in mind, saying that it would have a certain characteristics. For example, if I am going to solve a problem wherein I want to communicate with my customers accurately, or I want to solve problems in IT development where my coding errors reduce. So we have a problem and there's an end state in mind in terms of what will be the characteristics of success per se at the end state. So there's a solutioning in mind and there's a direction that we have, which is more driven by business. But typically, when we operate, our traditional path is more to do with trial and error, some kind of brainstorming techniques, some lateral thinking techniques. Then there are other techniques by De Bono that people would use, but typically people use this technique of brainstorming and others to really come up. And if you observe, these kind of techniques are more of like vectors and experiments. So you see them moving in different directions, but it is only through trial and error that we are able to come to the specific solution. And there also, there is no guarantee that this solution is the ideal solution or this is the best solution that really exists. But it's more to do with trial. And of course, in this trial and error journey of ours, there is a lot of time that gets spent, and resources also that get spent looking at the dynamic behavior of our businesses. sometimes by the time you come to the solution, the process itself has become obsolete. And therefore the challenge of how do we really come up with processes which take us to the ideal solution as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, and it needs to be as close as possible to the ideal solutioning. So that's the whole journey. And in innovation TRIZ, what we are doing is we convert this specific problem into a general TRIZ problem on a general plane or a conceptual plane, and then try and figure up solutions and use understanding and knowledge and patterns which exist in technology, sciences, and various other business processes where people would have addressed this similar kind of problems, and look at the patterns of solutioning that really exist. And then we come up to a general solution, TRIZ solution, which we can then migrate and move into a practical solutioning and identify the best solution that brings us to the specific solutioning. So if you look at this is like a U kind of a movement, like a cyclic movement that helps us to overcome this mental inertia or the bias. Because if we move through the brainstorming, still the mental inertia is still there with us in a sense, and that is what exactly TRIZ helps us to do. And initially it's very difficult because you trying to move into a conceptual plane in putting in, but at a certain moment of time it's an exercise. There are tools that help us to build this kind of capability. There are creativity building tools in TRIZ also that helps us to come up with help us to boost our creativity elements of thinking, and that makes us into a better problem solver per se. So this is the general approach of TRIZ as we see here. So if you see, there are a lot of filters, possible solutions and filters. So in TRIZ there are a lot of these filters and trends of evolution that help us to even identify a specific solution. So these really operate and help us to build that. Of course, it also has a journey in building capability. Many organizations globally also, we look at a few globally and within India also, there are organizations, but primarily they are in the manufacturing design field who are experimenting. But we have quite a few organizations in IT research, and also hardware development, Intel and robotics and some other areas also, consulting firms also, which are heavily investing in this kind of adoption of TRIZ techniques in a business scenario for them to really think about new business processes and areas for them to improve. So if you look at the roadmap per se, you will see there are these four stages of initiation, ideation, integration, and implementation of the innovation concepts and experimentation. So here innovation per se, if we have to drive within an organization, very important that we experiment first with two elements. One is solving problems per se, which are really the burning issues, because then people really start looking at the benefits of tangible benefits of doing innovation. So one of the greatest benefit is identifying solutions faster and better solutions which give you business impact. The second would be to move towards making our people, enabling them to build creativity, and so that when they are building and processes, and when they are addressing problems, and when they are utilizing them to come up with new processes, better processes, and managing risk, so they are actually better off compared. So you have a 4I kind of innovation model. Here are a list of various organizations globally who are heavily invested into using TRIZ techniques, not only in manufacturing but service industry also, and quite a few, as I spoke of, in India also, they are on the verge. QI is currently working with few of the organizations in IT, service industry, BFSI space per se, with their business excellence teams and others, to train them on these skills, and actually do sessions and workshops wherein we actually solve problems for them. And so it's a skill building activity wherein they actually come with problems, real time problems, and go with solutions at the end of the session. and it of course builds up into a cycle that really helps them to overcome the mental inertia. Any questions still here at this stage before we go ahead? Please do let me know. You can write on the chat session window here any questions that you would have. Okay, great. So I will take you through the next slides, which talk about what is this difference between ideation, invention, and innovation. Typically, so if you look at ideation is more to do with creativity and building general ideas, may or may not be deployable. Invention is something coming up with a novelty or a characteristic, but the application may or may not be there in that. So ideation is a process, and invention would actually generate that kind of an IP or that kind of innovative novelty kind of a product or a process. But it may not have any implications on the actual problems at hand. But when we talk about innovation, it's more to do with novelty and usefulness. So it is something that we can use in our business processes, in our applications, in our problem solving, and so innovation in that sense is different because it is still practical in nature here. If you look at here, like a photograph here of a person trying to build six pack. So and the person wants to relax kind of, so then you have this kind of a technique. So it's more like a innovative kind of an approach to really get this done very faster. If we look at innovation as a entire offering or a bird's eye view on whatever tools that are available, these are various tools, techniques which are available, and of course in TRIZ there are various schools of TRIZ that have evolved over a period of time with various techniques which they offer. So there are, one is the most important when we begin with, is to start with the inventive problem solving. So here is where you can reduce cost, look at improving efficiencies, product process development, you can get inside. Then the other element is to directed evolution, that is to look at future products, services that we are developing for the future. Then anticipatory failure determination, that is AFD, which is to do with identifying failures and predicting failures in existing and new systems that we really develop as processes. Very, very robust approach, wherein the approach talks about doing an inversion or a reverse role, saying that how do we really create the problem in the first place? So instead of us trying to solve the problem, in a business process or a particular challenge that we really face, how do we create the problem and then try and understand the interlinkages of various systems and sub elements so that we are able to manage the risk. And a fourth element is the intellectual property element, that is how to convert all of these ideas and innovations into an IP and then protect that, or to some extent also there are strategies available to circumvent innovations also. So if you look at in TRIZ, there is this element of balancing both the sides of our brain. One is the creative and the other is the logical element. And so the boosting, usually we are more um, uh, of a logical thinker per se. If we many studies that got done typically, which also get quoted in TRIZ white papers, is the greatest creator is a child in the age group of highest level of creativity really exists in the age group between 7 to 12 years, and then it droops off. So the element is, and it droops off because of various reasons, educational, it could be surrounding, cultural elements and biases, experiential biases that really come inside. But the element of TRIZ is to really boost those creativity tools, and there are so there are very many tools available for us to regain that element of creativity, especially when we design customer interfaces, customer experiential management, user interface management. So there are a lot of these kind of creativity tools that are available. If you look at the TRIZ tools, so I'm just showing you a list of various tools that are or techniques that are available in the TRIZ approach. So you'll see many tools here which are more to do with logical thinking. So hierarchy of functions, functional analysis, multi-screen thinking. You have SF model or the Field model. You have functional modeling and trimming, very useful kind of tools. And there are technical system evolution tools, and there are other tools which are to boost the creativity, like morphological analysis. You have phantogram method, then STC operator kind of method. You have a goldfish kind of method. So multiple methods, and a very interesting method here. If you see method 17, which is method of miniature drafts, is very useful for you to overcome a lot of mental inertia. And so these are the multiple tools that are available, very useful and very robust, and a vast set of tools. Of course, in TRIZ also, people start multiple levels of TRIZ knowledge based application are there, and these get learned over a period of time. One of the greatest contributions of Altshuler was the element of starting thinking in terms of functionality. And what he really proposed is an ideal solution. So we should be aiming towards an ideal solution. An ideal solution is where all of the useful functions are the highest, the harmful functions and undesirable functions are the lowest, and the cost is the lowest per se. So just yesterday, I was with one client of mine, and we were really looking at. So they are into telecom kind of a space, and they were looking at how to develop processes. And when they develop processes for the field, for the branch, and for multiple stakeholders, and the central processing, and the branch, and the outlets, and then it has a vast implications. So, for example, if I develop a process of onboarding a new customer, then the main functionality of onboarding a new customer would be to capture a certain information and trigger the account as such. That's the useful function. But if you look at the harmful functions, there could be delay, there could be unnecessary asking of information, there could be dependencies on high automated tools, which are all the harmful functions. And of course, because we developed a process which is very complex, there is an element of cost involved also. So in ideality, the element talks about is how to have all of the useful functions in. So useful functions will be highest. How can I have the information of the customer and the activation done at as fast as possible and done with least number of steps, so that my cost is the lowest, and the delays and the interfere and the dependencies and multiple other elements are to the lowest element, and that solution becomes our ideal solution. One of the proponents of TRIZ and one of the axioms of movements of TRIZ is that all systems will move towards ideality, wherein, and they have a tendency to move towards an ideality. So when we design processes and business processes, we are actually thinking about how to develop these towards ideality, because all useful functions will be highest, harmful functions to be the lowest, and the cost to be the barest minimum. And that's what we know as ideality. So the whole approach is to move towards ideality. And how do we really move towards ideality? So here is an example, a quick example, of a car here. If you look at, so one approach is to increase the scope of application of services or the functions. So you have a certain advantage, and why not really use this? So can I have a two-wheeler car, for example? Can this be really applied for me to move through? Or I can think of increasing the number and types of functions. So can I have the car sitting arrangements that can change the posture and the body shape and change the shape depending on the posture and the body shape of the person in terms of movement? Or I can look at part 3, that is convert harmful functions into a useful functions or a source of resource. For example, the car vibrations, can I use them for generation of electricity or charge hybrid vehicles and systems which are coming in? And the fourth is, can I reduce the harmful functions? Can I reduce pollution? And the fifth is, can I reduce the resources? Can I make it fuel efficient? Now, if you look at this kind of an example here, it is so very easy for us to take this element into a business scenario, because when we are designing processes and when we are interfacing with multiple stakeholders, when we want to move towards an innovative process, we are thinking in terms of functionality. They say, is there a scope of application of the process? Can I use the same process somewhere else also? Can this be redeployed somewhere else? Can I increase the usefulness of the process? Can this be useful to my end customer? Can, like, if I'm contacting the customer, or if I'm building certain logics, or if I'm doing a programming and I'm providing a resolution to the customer on a ticket, then that resolution, can I acquire certain information that will be useful to me at a certain moment of time? Can I convert harmful functions into a source of advantage? Can I convert the delay into an opportunity for me to engage with the customer in a certain sense? Or can I convert harmful into useful functions? Or can I reduce the resources which come in? So it gives us a very good approach for us to really start thinking about processes in a very different manner, business processes in a very different manner, and org structures, business processes in a very, very different manner per se. So here is an example that we really saw. So the key other element is that functions will remain constant, but the solutions keep on changing and evolving. So functions will remain. So for example, when we say we want to develop a software, so the function of developing the software is to provide certain functionality for the end user or for the client. That's the functionality. And the building of that becomes a functionality. But can we not meet them in different ways? So the solutions keeps on changing. So I can have an open platform kind of an engagement. I can create libraries of codes which are again easily available, or I can start from scratch, or I can use multiple different modes of engagement or multiple different technologies for me to really provide the same functionality. But the element is the function remains the same, but the way in which we really meet that keeps on changing. And one of the examples that I normally give is like an airline ticket. If you look at an airline ticket, if you look at it, maybe 10 years, 15 years back, you would have seen one booklet, which the functionality of the booklet was to contain information. But now, the same element of functionality of containing information is done by an RFID code or by an SMS or by an email, which is could be in digital form. But suddenly, when this moved in, so the solution has changed, but still the functionality continues to happen. And as this evolved over a period of time, what has happened is cost has come down, harmful functions have come down. So there is no waiting for the travel desk to give me a ticket, or there is no element of checks whether they have torn the right sheet of paper from that booklet also. So all of these checks and all of these element of concerns have gone away, and there's also another concern of losing that ticket at a certain moment of time. That itself has gone away because it's digital and you can access it anywhere. Is there with you at any moment of time. So the solutions have evolved. So one of the key proponents of innovation is functions will remain, but the solutions in which we really work through will keep on changing. So if you look at here, see how the change has happened is in terms of communications from the earlier time period, moved from a smoke screen to a drum, and then moved to a telephone, and then we have the mobile phone, and then the latest mobile phone. So but still the functionality is still the element of passing information or coding information, which can help people take decision making. So but the solutions kept on changing, evolving over a period of time. Okay, here is another example of evolving solutions in terms of travel that people have been doing. So of course, it can come back. So the cycle can again come back because of X reason on a lighter note. But you would have these kind of movements, per se. Okay. So we see here that there are two elements. One is all systems tend towards ideality, such that the useful functions are always the highest, the harmful functions or some negative impact like errors, cost, and they all come down dramatically. That's moving towards ideality. The second element is when we are designing processes, we are also thinking about what is the function of doing an element or a process, and what's the function on the process to be existing. What does it really do? And therefore, if I know the function, can I deliver in different ways? And which takes us to the next element here. So if you look at various other examples are there of how very innovatively, if you see here, there is a barcode that is used for communication. There are icons that can use for communication instead of you typing something or you putting the codes. If you look at app itself is like another element of innovation of the functionality, because instead of you writing a code, you're selecting certain image and that gets really put inside. Or you can also do use convert harmful functions into some benefits, like people walking on a certain screen, or resistance can be used for creating energies, and certain harmful elements can be used to convert into useful elements. Or if you observe here, you can do some mistake proofing and editing and mistake proofing of your current processes. That is also one ideal way of meeting the solutions which are there. So here are some examples that we really spoke. The other key element of innovation in business is also to start thinking in terms of contradiction, because for every problem to exist, there's a contradiction. So the contradiction is essentially there are two demanding forces that are acting on the same area or the business process functionality that we are really trying to look at. So for example, here is an example which would articulate what this contradiction is, and how do we really frame this. So for example, here is a vehicle which we need to have a bulletproof kind of a vehicle. So we have a vehicle which I want to be bulletproof. Maybe a small gun machine also it should be able to take care. But now, as the demands on this vehicle keep on rising, what we will have to do is we will have to make the walls of this vehicle thicker in a sense, so that the person is that safety element is maintained. But as we do that element, there is an increasing fuel cost that we have to bear. So what we are stating here is we have a contradiction here. So on one side, I want the vehicle to be safe and preventing any bullets and other elements hitting me, but I have to compromise on the fuel efficiency. The other element is if I want to have the fuel efficiency put inside, then I can't really be creating a vehicle that is bulletproof. So and you see these contradictions are there in all our business processes. For example, I want to prevent errors from happening in my processing or the coding. So then I need to have more inspection put inside. But if I put more inspection, the cost rises. The other difference could be I want to have processes which can go faster, so I have to lay focus on automating it. But if I do automation, there is a heavy investment which I have to put in, and the challenge becomes my people. I have to multi-skill my people. The other could be like you have contradiction on I want to create a shared services desk, so I have to multi-skill the people. But the more multi-skilling that I do, it becomes difficult for me to control and manage which person is going to do what activity at a certain moment of time. So you have contradictions available. So in innovation, TRIZ, there is a technique wherein you try and formulate this contradiction like a formula here using if then but. So you see here we have if then but. So we say if we have a reinforced car body to make it bulletproof, then there is something positive. So if you do something, then there is something positive. The positive is the owner can feel more safe and while they are traveling on the road, but the vehicle fuel efficiency will get compromised. So now you have got a contradiction. So in our traditional way, we would be thinking about some kind of a compromise in terms of should what should be the optimal thickness of the car body so that the fuel efficiency is running at a certain optimal level of performance. But then there is a give and take, which we typically take for granted, and that is really something. So we want to have both in innovation and ideality. We want to have both, means we would want to have a car body that is bulletproof and yet fuel efficient, and both the forces are to be met simultaneously in the solution that we develop, and that's a stronger solution. So you see, there are a lot of these kind of thinking that is done, and even in business processes also. That means I do not want to have the high level of inspection, yet the errors should not happen or should not slip out. Or I want to do the software development at very high speed, and even then, without compromising on the quality or the functionality of certain elements that are happening. So both quality as well as speed, both to be managed simultaneously. And this helps us to really formulate problems in a very beautiful manner. Some more examples of contradiction, if you look at, so data should be easily accessible to improve decision making, and we have to protect it to stop competition. Or similarly, if we look at airplane design, sometimes when you're designing, it should have a large area for us to take off, but for higher speed it should be smaller in size. Or if you look at another contradiction, a pen tip should be sharp to draw fine lines, but yet blunt to avoid tearing the paper. Now there are these contradictions that are everywhere for us. So if you look at large maintenance department is to provide all of the services, but small maintenance department is required to save the money. So you have a lot of these contradictions, and very easy for us to formulate this using the if then but kind of scenario. So if you look at, here is another example. So I want to have a big car and a small car which are here, and you see here that you can have big and small both simultaneously working through. And here is an example that which is actually like a car which can stretch also. So it can be a two-seater and stretch for a four-seater also, depending on the demand, which is like a dynamic car for easy parking. So here are some examples that will help you. Any questions still here that you would have here? Any questions? Please do type on the sessions window. If there are any questions, just you can type on the sessions window and I can quickly answer them. Okay. So I will just show you certain tools in applications in business, which are from TRIZ innovation, which help us to overcome a lot of and come up with solving problems in a very innovative manner from business scenario. So here is an innovative problem solving business management kind of a guidebook. I'm showing you various tools and techniques. So there is one technique in TRIZ innovation which is called as multi-screen diagram. So it looks at three elements of a particular area. For example, you want to predict and you want to prepare for the future in terms of a certain area, and you want to address the problems so that it is future ready. So for example, I am looking at ITIS infrastructure support. So this is a system. So ITIS infrastructure support current system is a current system, and it has got multiple systems, subsystems within them. Like you may have CRM, ticketing tool, remote access, virtual phones, email, and self-healing tools and others which are the subsystem. And in the super system, which is the surrounding. So super system is a surrounding area or the surrounding business space for the IT infrastructure support, which is third party support, the IT device users, admin team, transportation, communications, on-site support team. So this is the current scenario. So this is the current present. But now if I look at the past, how was it done in the past? So on your left, if you look at the screen here, earlier we had desk type support and we had escalation team. There were paper folders, you had Excel files, you had SMEs who were working and who would record certain elements using pen and paper. and you would have in the super system desktops and other HR team, QA team, IT device manage users, software users. Now, if we look at the future, say 5 years, 5 years down the line, or in the immediate future, how this is going to progress. So, if you go on the right hand side, this helps us to identify, say, self-detection and self-healing IT systems. So, IT, IS infrastructure support will entirely move towards more of this automation kind of movements. And in them, then what will be the subsystems involved? So, you will see here, you will have knowledge bases, CMDB, and you'll have artificial intelligence, IVRs, IT upgrades, and the super system would be more to do with IT device users, analysts, programs, systems, and others, because that itself will become the super system. So this is a very good tool for us to predict and see the system per se, or a business system or a business process, in terms of how it will evolve in the future. Here is another example of an ideal solution when we say what is ideality. So, for example, I just take one example here from software process estimation for application development. So, you see, effort estimation for application development is the system or the object that we are trying to implement. The main functionality, the function that we just spoke of some time back, is to estimate project time and cost, because that's an objective of the estimation process. So the ideal solution is what? The ideal solution is time and cost estimate is delivered. So we are getting the time and cost estimate while there is no effort estimation to deliver the estimated project time and cost. In ideality, the trending towards ideality is the functionality of a particular process or a step is met, but the process step or the people or the system per se delivering itself ceases to exist. It does not exist at all at a certain moment of time. But the functionality is met by multiple other ways without the step really existing. So here you see a very strong kind of definition on ideality, which you would observe here. So here are, so basis this, once you have this kind of thought in mind, then you can come up with multiple approaches for you to do time and effort estimations. As part of, here are a few that I have put forward, and we were looking at with various clients in terms of quick solutions that we can really think of overcoming the time and effort estimations kind of. If you look at the next one here, so we are trying to look at negative or harmful functions, how to minimize negative harmful functions. So one of the problems in effort estimation is there would be low accuracy in effort estimation, because many times the effort variation is very large. So the ideal solution would be effort estimations that produce low accuracy in effort in estimates, eliminates the low accuracy all by itself without adding anything to the system. That means the process or the system itself, the system or the tool or the technique that you are using for effort estimation itself will eliminate the low accuracy that exists without you adding anything. So there is no scope for you to add anything inside new per se as a step, like doing automation or trying to build in more checks and other element. But we will try and address this off in the very first place. If you look at, there are some other solutions that really came up from, so like for example, can I have parallel estimates done by multiple teams together? Team members can drop estimates from the activities themselves, that what they are doing, which is very similar to what we do in agile. Involve client ID teams for the estimation process, and look at information available from the past, because you would have estimated a lot of elements in the past, and if we can take that as a standardized, we can really build in a lot of these elements. And here are some examples of contradictions that we saw. So let me just take you through some of them. These are all from business scenario. This is like a loan processing for an SME. So if the loan processing is carried out in multiple steps, then the work can be done by the generalist, but the throughput of the process drops. So if I have multiple steps, then I can have generalists doing micro steps, and the cost would actually come down. But the problem would be the throughput will drop also. But if the loan processing is done at a single step, then the throughput increases. But we will require a specialist, because they will have to perform multiple activities. And this is the kind of a contradiction that you really see in many of the areas. Similarly, if you look at here, if there is an immediate individual visit made by the potential customer as soon as the lead is identified, then conversion rate will improve, but the cost of making the visits will rise. So you see there is a contradiction available here. So the ideal solution would be we make an immediate visit, but there is no increase in the cost at all, which takes us more and more towards what we know as the ideality. So here are various other elements. So any questions to the team here? Because then I would like to close our session here. So if any questions are there, please type into the sessions window here, which you see on your screen. If you just maximize your screen here, you'll be able to see when you log in onto some chat session windows and on. Um, so typically, we have a lot of tools available for. So we see a lot of application of innovation in the field of business, and it's. I'm sure that in the recent times it will gain more and more of importance with a lot of automations and artificial tool and neural logistics and data, big data entering inside, because the challenge will be people will have to gain skills of designing processes better per se, which will leverage these kind of technologies, and therefore the need arises for us to really build in a lot of these elements of movement. So QA is involved in delivering a lot of this consulting also. We have even planned in the coming months in Delhi, Bangalore, and Mumbai certain sessions, 2-day programs, 3-day programs on innovation for business, which are aimed at giving you some of the skills so that you can solve and come up with innovative problems for at least one problem area that you come with in this session, and you go out with some innovative solutions. So that's the whole objective. And do feel free to contact QAI also. And let me just share my email ID here, and let me share my email ID with you. If you anytime feel the need to contact, please do contact me on my email ID. My email ID and mobile phone is mentioned here, and we'll be really glad to assist you. Um, this webinar session that we are having now, you will get a link of this webinar session post the session ending, and you can view this also post the session, and we looking forward to a lot of good association, because I'm seeing that a lot of businesses in India are now getting warmed up to these kind of very systematic ways of coming up with thinking out of the box per se. It is not only just doing brainstorming, but trying to address problems in a very systematic manner and address them. So, I took the opportunity. Yeah, overall, thanks for attending the session, and I hope this session was useful to all of you. The objective was to make you aware about some of the TRIZ basic fundamentals of what TRIZ is all about and how it is applied in business scenarios, give a few examples and a certain key fundamentals of ideality, contradiction, and functionality. And I'm sure as we imbibe techniques, methods of thinking in functions, contradictions, we will become better thinkers in future and better innovators in future, right? And we'll be able to solve our problems, business problems, contradictions in much better ways without compromise, without putting a compromise onto the solutioning. So thank you for your time. And if there are any questions, queries, please do write up, visit our website, qiglobal.com, and we'll be glad to really assist you. Thank you all for attending the session. Thanks.